Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm great, Paul. How are you doing?
Well, I was worried about you. We did call several of the police agencies and put a silver alert out on you.
I don't blame you. Well, they've called an early appropriation meeting, and I can't be two places at once, so I
Well,
just
that's
called
good.
in.
That's no problem. Thank you so very much. Is on this? You got to help me clarify this on this horse racing bill that passed the Senate yesterday. How I missed this one. You know anything about it?
Well, tell me what it was again.
It was a horse racing bill to legalize horse racing in the state. The Senate passed it yesterday. It's a House bill.
I know nothing about it.
1353 horse racing bill. And it came from the House, though.
Did not get to the House.
All right, now I'm really confused. As the chairperson of corrections, give me a little bit of a report on your tenure on this one the first time, and any big news on that.
Well, right now we are, on the budget section, we're trying to get several programs. We have a 77% recidivism rate in the state of Mississippi. That's not good, Paul. That 70% will go back into prison. So what I've come in and I've had this 2 whole months, so I'm playing a lot of catch up. But what we're trying to start is some programs where the last 2 to 3 years of your sentence. Now that's if you're nonviolent, no murder, rape, that kind of thing. We would find you a job, make sure you get there, get your fines paid, because a lot of people get out of jail, have no job, have fines to pay, and they just go right back into doing what they were doing before. But if we can get them, make sure they have an address to go to, and really have a case worker following that person, and so they would be on parole. But we want them to leave more successful, just sitting them in a prison cell, and then one day the gate opens and you go out. We're not setting anybody up for success. And so that's what my goal has been the whole 2 months that I've had it. I just see just a big hole there of people who come back out and reoffend. The last several years, the legislature has, wanted to let more nonviolent criminals out because our jails are overloaded, but yet we expect them to go out as a felon and have a driver's license and get a job and an apartment, and they got $40 in their pocket. So it just doesn't work, as easily as most people think it would.
But Becky, that's not a new problem. I mean, that's been a problem for decades.
That's not a new problem, but it's not a solved problem.
Well, the current commissioner has put talked about churches and the religious aspect of this, and also some jobs and everything else. Are you saying that those programs are not working?
Well, they're not being done. So far, 50 people have gone through there in the last 2 years. It's just not enough. The bill that I'm working on has 1,000 people that we want to, and it's not going to happen overnight, Paul, but we've got to do something. I mean, once you get back out, you have no job, your family doesn't.
I understand that.
What are you going to do?
Let me ask you this when we come back. How does our recidivism rate compared to maybe some of the other prisons? This is Maybell, back with Becky Currie, who is a registered nurse and chairperson of the Department of Corrections. Okay, now it's a formidable task. I understand that. People have been trying to do this for a long, long time. One of the better ideas I've had is, or not me, that I've heard was if they have a work type job at the prison, whether it's prison industries, whatever, that they are able to pay them a little bit more. They're able to put some money aside in a mandatory savings account, and they would have that when they get out. Has something like that been tried?
Well, and that's what this program does. So for 3 years they will work,
Mm-hmm.
and they would make the regular amount. And I'm pulling this out of my hat. Let's say it's $15. They would keep a little bit of money for themselves at the canteen. They would pay their fine. They would have to. It's mandated in the bill that they have to save a little money, because the number one problem they have when they get out is they have nowhere to go. So the case managers that work at the Department of Corrections are going to have to step up and do a better job. Make sure, if you got 3 years to help somebody figure out where they're going to be going, because they're going to get out, we need to do a better job of making sure they're ready to walk out the door. The practice has been, you get a debit card of $40 and you walk out the door, and it doesn't even, you can't even go and start the debit card off right off the bat to get something to eat. So we have got to do a better job of making sure people are ready to leave and have a job, have a place to live, because otherwise they're just going to turn around and come back. But if you don't have an address, Paul, we can't even parole you and let you out. So all these things have got to start. I've been in this for 2 months now. Believe me, I was not expecting corrections as a nurse, and even though a lot of it is health care, we spend $110 million on health care every year, and the price is going up. It wasn't something that I knew a lot about. So I've been diving in and looking at things that we don't do as well as we should, and hopefully, I can come up with some things that I'm positive they've been looked at before, but have they been implemented? That's the question.
Usually, when you find out that you have been given chair of corrections, it's normally because you made the speaker mad, and
well, I'm the new
you don't
speaker,
ask for it.
I hope I hadn't made him mad yet, but nobody was more surprised than me.
Well, when you look at 77%, I was going to ask you this: is that normal for a prison system, or is it in line with other states? 77% is pretty darn high.
No, it's high. It's very high, and and I'm going to spend a lot of time this summer. I'm going to Louisiana. I'm going to look at what other states do, because never being involved in this before, I've got a huge learning curve, and I want to know. And one of the things that I've always tried to do is do a good job for the taxpayers and for the state of Mississippi. And this is something, I've always been pretty hard on crime. I'm not too interested in letting people out that are not ready to go out. So I feel like if that's my intent, that I need to make sure that they're ready to go out and not be a menace to society when they get there. They need to learn to be part of a community. They need to have a job. They need to have a place to live, pay their taxes, pay their bills. And but if you've never done that and you've sat in a prison, nobody's ever expected that of you, then you're not going to succeed when you get out.
I was looking for the story, but there is a story that's making national news this morning. I think it was in Illinois, where one of the members of the parole board resigned because they had just let out somebody had a bad record, but they let him out on a parole, and he just killed a kid the very next day, or killed someone the very next day. So, I mean, this has consequences. Our parole board has been under fire. I do know that you got HB 844. It is still alive. It's been referred to corrections. State parole board required to solicit recommendations from and provide notification to certain individuals before the parole hearing. And we had this with the Williams story, that they were not notified.
That's right. And I wrote this bill. I talked to Lynn Fitch, our Attorney General, and because of that case, this bill came up, and both of us were like, we need to make sure that everybody knows. You heard from the DA that said they looked in this kid's eyes. There was nobody home. There's so many things about this case bothered the judge and the DA and attorneys and the sheriff, and yet he got paroled and within weeks got a DUI.
Right.
And it's just
is he back in prison?
We need to hear from everybody, and we need to make good decisions on and the parole board is next on my venue. Like I said, this is early yet. I hope that they put me here because they know I'm going to make changes and I'm going to do the right thing. And hopefully, in my 4 years in this capacity, hopefully things will get better. But it is a lot, Paul. I'm not quite sure people actually know how much goes into prisons and parole and work release, and it's a huge endeavor and very costly if you're not careful.
Oh, absolutely.
We have the Justice Department breathing down our neck right now, and we're trying to do things to make sure they stay away. They went into Alabama and took over their prison system, and so far it's cost them $1 billion.
Wow.
And, that we also don't want that to happen as well to us.
Were you consulted, or what was your input as far as your counterpart in the Senate, Mr. Barnett, Senator Barnett, Chairman of Corrections there, on the bill he had to close down Parchman on a 4-year basis? I think it was 4 stages.
He talked to me about it. Parchman, we've put a lot of money in Parchman. It's air conditioned now. It had all kinds of plumbing problems, water, sewage, just all kinds of problems. And we have put a lot of money in it, but Senator Barnett was concerned that it's just a money hole, money pit, that we'll never get it right. And I have not been there yet, and that's on my list. This summer, I'm going to have a great summer, Paul, touring prisons. But I've not been there yet. Yeah. So I'm going to go see for myself. And, I know that he is passionate about that. We work well together and get along well together. So, next year, hopefully, I'll know more than I did this year, just being super brand new and I did not have any idea that this was coming, that I'd be over correction. So I've got a steep learning curve.
When you try to get an analysis of all the things going on and the aforementioned things as far as lawsuits or where the Department of Justice is breathing down your neck, which one of those do you think is the most imminent that we have to have some changes? And that might be the facilities themselves, but in the last report they had, which was a rather dismal report on our prisons as far as gang activity and elsewhere, it didn't include Parchman.
That's right. It's a lot of different things. They're looking at mental health. I wrote a bill years ago for mental health courts. We've yet to fully fund mental health courts. After you do it, with all the money we've had, Paul, I've tried to get mental health courts funded because a lot of mentally ill people may not have to go to prison if they're under the right care, which the mental health courts would do and would save a ton of money. When Louisiana did it, the first year, they saved $38,000 of antipsychotic drugs. $38 million of antipsychotic drugs in their prison system, because you have so many mentally ill people that get off their medicine, do something crazy, end up in prison. If we would just take the money right off the bat and stop half of that, the money we could save.
But let me put it this way: we're almost out. We're about to run out of time. But you're right. One way or the other, look at the people that should be not in our county jails. And in some states, they don't even do that. They're on the streets of San Francisco, and that is a shame. Look forward to, before the end of the session, maybe getting you in the studio. And I know you're busy, but thank you for taking the time, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Paul.